The darkness of Steve's home away from home shrouded him and hid his presence from the world. Stacks of paper, organized in crisscrossed fashion, served as reminders of projects that are close to their deadlines, uncaring of his personal life. The life that he built within these four walls balanced precariously on the world that's crumbling all around him. Only the soft glow of his laptop illuminated his world, keeping him focused on the task at hand. The hospital needed him to solve a technical problem. The emergency room doctor required Steve's assistance so that he could give the quality care to his patients. Only that the patient in dire need is a cheating bee. She deserves to suffer. She deserves to endure more pain than she's causing me right now. Each thought got stronger and more hateful. Steve looked away from the screen in disdain. A sneer formed upon his lips as he exploded from his chair, releasing emotion and anger. The snap from the sudden movement caused the chair to topple over with a crash. Some of the organized mess found on Steve's desk joined the chair on the floor. Not realizing his harsh action would put his work in such disarray, Steve kicked his chair in frustration before bending down to pick up the scattered papers, emails, and quotes. It was from this new perspective that Steve realized that his office was a satellite of memories. His home may have been destroyed. However, family pictures were strategically placed upon his workspace. Fate must have placed the picture of him playing catch with his two boys, so that it would catch the light of the laptop just right. Or that some cosmic being, so great and powerful, positioned the photo of Jill's 40th birthday party at just the right angle so that the love his children have for their mother would not be missed. Or perhaps the hand of God touched the arrangement, so that a quiet guidance could be whispered into the ear of the lost. They need their mother. Closing his eyes in resignation, Steve quickly picked up the papers and resumed his position in front of his laptop. If you're enjoying my content, consider joining my Patreon community. By becoming a patron, you'll get access to full parts of my videos much earlier than everyone else. Plus, you'll be supporting me to create even more awesome content for you. Check out the link in the description to join now. However, before he could enter another keystroke or another command, the door to his office flew open. "Bud, is everything okay in here? I heard this huge crash," Eric asked with some concern. Steve sighed with a heavy heart while typing on his keyboard. "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a little frustrated and tired at the moment." Eric shook his head, sounding confused. "Why are you here? I fixed the problem like you said on the phone. Images are going across as we speak." That was pretty ingenious. It was Steve's turn to sound confused. "They are? You reconfigured the firewall and the router?" Not waiting for a response, Steve ran the configuration command to verify that Eric did indeed rectify the problem. "They are. Things are cool, bud. Now, get upstairs and go see your wife." Eric paused for a moment. It was in that brief second that Steve could sense that Eric was struggling with something. An expectant look from Steve caused Eric to continue. "But if it were me, I would scorch the earth where she stood if she did that to me." Steve rolled his eyes, sinking back into his misery. "Yeah, I need to make a couple of phone calls. I'm sure the boys will want to know about their mother's condition. I wonder how the Ahole is doing that ruined my life. I hope she bit his sea off during the crash. It would be such poetic justice. Please, God, if you're listening, just once, answer this prayer. I beg of you." "Hey, Eric, is there any word on the other passenger from the wreck?" Steve tried so hard to hide his animosity. However, he was fooling nobody. Eric shrugged helplessly. "I don't think so. I think he was wearing his seatbelt." Steve rolled his eyes and then looked to the ceiling. "You really don't like me, do you? I don't know what I did, but whatever it was, I'm sorry." With a cleansing exhaled breath, Steve told Eric, "Well, go home and get some rest. I got a few phone calls to make. I probably won't be in due to all of this mess happening." Eric closed the door behind him, allowing Steve the privacy he needed to make those few phone calls. He called his sons, then her parents, and then her sister. After getting past the emotional trauma, Steve kept up the guise of not knowing the circumstances of the crash. He reserved the joy of explaining the injuries to the family to his wife. "I would love to be a fly on the wall during that conversation. Too bad I won't be there." One final number was dialed. When the person on the other end answered, Steve said, "Hey, I'm sorry to wake you, but I could really use a friend right now." He thought he would be able to keep himself composed. He thought wrong. Taking a deep breath, he continued, "Would you like to meet me for some coffee? I'll buy." Towering trees blurred by on either side of the sports car as the happy couple navigated the winding road on a dark summer's night. The evening was perfect for a secret encounter as they were the only people out on the road. The radio gods favored their midnight rendezvous by populating the airwaves with love songs. The happy couple laughed at the irony of the late-night infomercials played on the radio, suggesting that there were hot women staying in, talking on the phones rather than going out and being social. The serenity of the night took away the stress and strain of the daily routines in life. No bills that needed to be paid. No household chores that needed to be done. Nothing mattered except the two people spending time together. The lonely country road fueled the nostalgia and the ability to travel back in time, as if they were teenagers all over again. The age of the couple did not figure into their plans. The towering trees were not the only phallus symbol along this twisting and winding path. The well-built specimen of a man had unzipped his jeans, giving a knowing glance to the woman sitting in the passenger seat. She reached across so that she could grab hold of it, mesmerized by how small her hand looked in comparison. The man freed a hand from the steering wheel so that he could guide her closer and closer. It was clear what he wanted. "We're going too fast," protested the woman. Her words lacked conviction. Compulsion grabbed her. As she stared at the object of her desire, she found the words to say, "I don't even do this for my husband." "I'm not your husband," replied the man in a smug tone. The soft tones of the office telephone brought the distraught man back to the present. Normally, the telephone was the bane of his existence while at work. Constant calls about a computer not working properly, or the system going slow, or any other grievance that centered on user error kept his department busy to the point of being irritated and annoyed. The ringing would normally generate groans and smirks. However, the sound of something other than his thoughts and wild imagination was a welcomed relief. The fact that the caller ID showed up as the switchboard on the phone's LCD display helped temporarily. "Information technology, this is Steve. How may I help you?" was the programmed response from the IT director. "Hey," greeted Amber, her tone quite somber and demure as she questioned, "How are you doing? Are you going to be okay?" "How do you think I'm doing? My wife is around on me, and you think I'm going to be okay?" His thoughts screamed out, lashing out at the first person that he encountered. However, Steve had enough sense to filter his response. "Oh, I'll be fine. Just..." He paused in an attempt to keep the emotions from surfacing. However, he failed miserably. "It hurts, but I'll get through it." He paused to regain some sense of composure, but dutifully asked, "What can I do for you, ma'am?" "Steve." Amber wanted to say so much more, but couldn't find the words. Not without sounding like a greeting card found in some novelty shop. Her heart reached out to him. "Steve, the doctor would like to speak with you about your wife." "What? Does he want her cell phone number so he can give her a call once she's recovered in order to have her thank him properly?" Again with the cynicism, though not once does his filter allow this to pass through to his mouth. "Oh joy." Steve mimicked the physician in his head. "Yes, Steve. Your wife has an inflamed larynx caused by having a giant pea stuffed down her throat at the time of the accident. She won't be able to speak ever again." He contemplated whether or not to list that as a pro or a con, since she would not be able to nag him anymore. "I'll be right there." The early morning hours in the emergency department focused on two rooms. Patient care and proper documentation ruled the air. The skeleton crew of nurses attended to not only the needs of the patients, but also the attention of the only physician on duty. Entering orders, typing up nurses' notes, receiving lab results and X-ray reports were common tasks and considered the norm. However, upon Steve's arrival to the ER, the nurses found other duties that were suddenly neglected, such as checking and stocking supplies. It was only the physician that turned to face him. "We have stabilized your wife, and we are preparing to have her airlifted to St. Mary's Medical," explained the Indian doctor. 20 years of marriage, love, and devotion was hard to turn off for the hurt husband. Instinct forced him to inquire, "Airlifted? What's wrong? Is she okay?" He looked past the physician towards the occupied trauma room, expecting that his wife was behind the closed curtain. It was with that gaze that he spotted movement from one of the hallways. The night watchman had made his way in a casual manner to the ER, though his intent was clear: monitor the exchange between physician and the angry husband. The physician continued in his heavily accented English. There was some swelling near the spinal cord, affecting her motor functions. Fortunately, there was sensation in her extremities. She's breathing on her own. She's currently on methylprednisolone and being sent to St. Mary's Medical for surgery to relieve the swelling and to decompress the spinal cord. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Steve looked to the ceiling in frustration and aggravation. Do you hate me? Do I look like job to you? After cursing the heavens, Steve looked the physician in the eye and asked, will she be able to walk again? We should know more after the surgery. The fact that she's showing signs of sensory perception in her toes is quite promising, answered the physician. Steve spied the other exam room being occupied this evening. The pulled curtain protected the privacy and the identity of its occupant. A glance towards the security guard stopped Steve from doing something reckless and stupid. A faint smile accompanied Steve's response to the physician. Thank you, doctor. The lonesome back corridor of the emergency department, generally used for the transitioning of patient care such as moving ER patients to surgery or radiology or admitting ER patients up to med/SURG as an inpatient, served as refuge for Steve. Dubbed the interstate corridor by hospital employees based on its length, the quiet and the long expanse of the hallway provided the IT director with time to focus his thoughts. With each step, Steve realized that his life resembled the crisis that the hospital faced not an hour ago. The centralized switch failed, causing chaos and disarray throughout the entire hospital. Jill was his centralized switch. In the safety and privacy of the Network Operations Center, his favorite comic book anti-hero would be proud of his technological man cave. Tucked away in a hidden closet with the spaghetti mess of network cables and twisted pairs used for the telephone circuitry, Steve found sanctity and serenity in the IT fortress of solitude. The green, blue, orange, and red LED lights, which belonged to the various pieces of network equipment, had a calming effect similar to that of an illuminated Christmas tree in a darkened family room. Steve plugged his laptop into the radiology network and pulled up the PAC software. HIPAA be damned. I'm simply verifying the integrity of patient data after experiencing a potential for data loss, Steve told himself with a sense of purpose. If my wife was being stabilized for a spinal injury, then it was you who needed the CAT scan. Let's find out exactly who you are. The violation of the governmental regulations hardly registered in Steve's mind as the different screens appeared on his laptop's display. The patient's demographics was the first screen accessed, revealing not only Don Juan's real name, but his address, phone number, and his employer. Unable to curb his technological fetish, Steve scrolled through the numerous images of the CT scan. While he may not have understood what he was seeing the insides of the man who wrecked his life provided a mild form of catharsis. It humanized his villain. Finally, he accessed the preliminary radiology report to discover that he suffered a mild concussion and would be held overnight at the hospital.